Welcome in. I think this is going to be a spicy one. I definitely know this is going to be a spicy one. For everyone joining, whether you're live, whether you're watching on the recording, welcome. Great to be here. Sportscastersclub.com is where we have a lot of information, videos, education, books, 7-hour broadcasting course, all kinds of great things, whether you're a sports fan or a sports broadcaster. My name is Rick, if we haven't met. Tonight we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about, is soccer boring? And right there, probably I'm turning off at least half of you, maybe more, depending on where you're watching from. Most of my viewers come from the United States. So if you're from other places around the country, you're probably already tuned out, but that's okay. Because I do have a method, I do have a purpose for coming in so hot with that provocative title. And I want to know if you agree or disagree, so leave a comment in the chat. But is soccer boring? Why am I saying this? Is it because I'm just being a jerk? Maybe. Is it because I'm trying to stir up trouble? Perhaps. Am I looking for clicks? Always looking for clicks. Make sure to subscribe if you're watching this video. But let's see, what's the real reason that I made this video? Because it's one of the most talked about subjects and talked about topics right now in the world, certainly in the United States. In much of the northern United States, you can barely see outside because it's hazy, it's smoky. It's been like this for 3 days. If you live somewhere else, you may not know. But it's crazy. You go outside in the middle of the day and you feel like it's dusk. You can barely see it. It was a sunny day for a couple days this week. And it's hazy and cloudy. It's like a fog. It's smoke from these wildfires in Canada. Is it just me? Or did these things never happen when we were kids? 40, 50, 60 years ago? Did we have days on end? If you remember, let me know. But I don't recall having this. And this is now the second time. It happened about 3 years ago. We had a week or so where there was so much smoke. And every day you'd go outside. Thankfully, Tesla cars come with the HEPA filter, which is it's made for like a world war. It's made for an environmental crisis, and you can use that. But that's one of the topics people are talking about. The other one is the fact that people are getting crazy diarrhea from eating lettuce, and you've probably seen that on the news. People are talking about that I've been eating lettuce every day. People say, how can you do that? Why are you eating your salad? Something's wrong if I have to be worried about eating the salad and not worried about eating the cheeseburger. I love the cheeseburger, but most of the time I stick with the salad. Thirdly, obviously people are talking about the fact that people in our own government have worked with other countries to change elections, to rig elections, to change votes. So those are some of the other big topics in the United States and in the world right now. But what we are going to talk about is this one that I brought up on the thumbnail. Is soccer boring? And most importantly for you, what does this have to do with sports broadcasting? Whenever you tune in here to Sportscasters Club, or when you go to sportscastersclub.com, you're there because you're a sports fan or you're into sports broadcasting. So I am going to tie this question to sports broadcasting. It's not going to be just an opinion of mine. There is a reason I asked the question. So if you're a sports fan or an aspiring sportscaster, glad you're here to find out the answer. All right. Let's first start and set the table. Let's set the table. The reasons I find soccer boring. this has kind of been the joke since I was a kid 50 years ago, that they just run around for an hour and a half. And every once in a while, if you're lucky, they put the ball in the goal. So I find that extremely boring, just watching a bunch of people running around for an hour and a half and doing nothing. Now, it reminds me of my days as a high school student. I can remember having arguments with my computer programming teacher. I was the starting catcher on the baseball team, co-captain of the team. And my computer teacher would come in and say, baseball is so boring. Now, I wish now that I would have paid a lot more attention to what he was teaching, because I'd probably have a yacht and be a billionaire like so many of the computer programmers years ago. That wasn't my thing. It was cool. It was basic programming, but it was with the smartest of the smartest that were in that class with me. I don't know how I snuck in. And they're all doing wonderful, amazing technical things. And I'm doing a YouTube program here, which is awesome, talking about why I find soccer boring. But that's one reason I find soccer boring, because they just run around aimlessly, it seems, forever, and nothing happens. But the reason I bring up my computer programming teacher is he used to tell me, Rick, baseball is the most boring thing. You can just stare out at the sun. You could pick dandelions most of the time and nothing happens. And I would try to explain to him that there's so much going on, so much strategy with every player on that diamond for every pitch. And it's so in-depth, but a casual person who doesn't know wouldn't understand. So if I'm going to be honest with you, I'm sure that's the same with soccer. I'm sure. And I played soccer as a child. Most people do. So I do say it partly tongue-in-cheek, the fact that they just run around and do nothing for an hour and a half. Another reason I find it boring is, as I said, I grew up in the U.S. Here's something funny about growing in the U.S. 9 out of every 10 kids play soccer. Everyone plays soccer. In fact, we all know it. Not many people say it. But as kids, soccer is the sport that anybody can play. Go on out there, run around. You're playing soccer. It's great exercise. You learn teamwork. If you can get out there and run, walk, stand, you can play soccer. And so even the most non-athletic people, as kids, they can play soccer. And you know that's true. That's what it was when I grew up. And I played soccer. I was often a goalie. I wasn't a great soccer player. My kicking technique was not great. And I was slow. But I was coordinated. I was an athlete as I got older. But anyone can play soccer, even the ones they just stand. And they just stand and look around. You've seen it in the movies. Or you've seen it when you go out on Saturday mornings, whether it's your son or daughter or someone else's that has a soccer game. And again, I say this partly tongue-in-cheek, the fact that anyone who can stand can play soccer. Because obviously, as they move up the ranks, there's an immense amount of athleticism, skill, and talent. That's true. So I'm not just being a complete jerk. But as a child and growing up in the U.S., soccer's a little bit different. Another reason I didn't grow up watching soccer. So what I knew about the game was from those Saturday mornings playing on my childhood soccer team. I didn't play it in middle school, high school, college. And I didn't grow up watching it because it was not a major sport then. We watched baseball. We watched football, basketball. Hockey was the next one down. Soccer was way down. No one talked about soccer then. No one watched soccer. So I didn't grow up watching it. It just was not a major sport at the time. I realized, and I always knew it was the most popular sport worldwide. That I knew. It just wasn't in the US. And it didn't hit me that the US had made a change in this regard until I was the sports director at WFUV Radio at Fordham in New York City, 2017, and I managed about 50 students, broadcasters of all different levels and different ages, from freshman to senior. And they came in and they would want to watch soccer and talk about soccer and golf. Golf. How about that? I love watching golf now. As a youngster, it was one of the most boring things to watch. Kind of like soccer in that regard for me. But the students of 2017 were into it. They knew the players. They were excited by it. It was a generational shift. And so it wasn't a big thing when I was a child, when I was young, but it's made a shift. And now the youth, millennials, Gen Z, they like soccer. They like it. Gen X, nah. It's hit and miss. So we've seen a change in the U.S. If you grew up in the U.S. now, it's a little different than when I did. And another reason I find soccer boring, I don't think I've ever broadcast it. I don't think I have. I broadcast a lot of sports, some of them a little off the wall, but not soccer. I remember when I had never broadcast hockey. Many of these same things were true as well about hockey when I was young. I grew up in the U.S. I didn't grow up playing it. I didn't watch it much as a youngster. So then when I started to broadcast it for Army at West Point, I had to do a lot to prepare myself. We're going to talk about that in a second too. Just a reminder to subscribe if you're watching the channel. Also, you can check out all of our books and our 7-hour course at sportscastersclub.com. So what does all this have to do with sports broadcasting? Why am I bashing soccer here when much of the US and much of the world is into it? Here's why. If you want to excel as a sports broadcaster, specifically in soccer, you must solve for those conditions I just mentioned. All those things I just talked about, right here. They run around, they never score, it's boring. We don't grow up watching it, we don't grow up playing it. It's not a major sport when we're young. We're not familiar with it. We need to solve for those things if we're going to broadcast the sport, just like I did when I'd never broadcast hockey, and then I wanted to, and then I did. You've got to be knowledgeable. Let me get myself out of the picture here. You've got to be knowledgeable. You've got to be passionate. You've got to learn, spend the time to learn the game. You've got to know the history, the teams, the players, the coaches, what's going on in the world, the standings, the tournament, all the storylines. That's part of being knowledgeable. Being passionate, you've got to be into it. You've got to have that energy that attracts a viewer or a listener. You've got to be passionate about what you're broadcasting. And you're going to notice that these are true regardless of the sport. You've got to be conversant. What does that mean? I've got to be able to talk to you about whatever's going on right now in that sport. So if you say, oh, what about golf? Well, it was an interesting day on day 2 of the Open for Bryson DeChambeau as he had that 2-stroke penalty on the 5th hole. I've got to be able to talk to you about that because he stepped down on some of the grass that was there, and so he had a better backswing. I'm able to talk about it. Or if I'm talking about a baseball player and the Mets possibly trading Francisco Lindor at the trade deadline because they're not going anywhere this year. They've been an utter disaster and a disappointment. But there are other teams that could use a shortstop. The Yankees could use a shortstop. Highly doubtful that they're going to make that intercity trade. But what I'm saying here now is I'm conversant in baseball, in golf, in different sports. And if you're going to broadcast soccer, you've got to be conversant in that sport at that time. I think what underpins it all, you've got to be willing to learn. Got to be willing to learn. You got to take the time to learn what you need to. When I, as I said, broadcast hockey for the first time, I spent a good year preparing. I read books. I started with the basics, the rules, the history of the game. And then I would watch every hockey game I could, because just by watching, I'm learning, picking things up. So if I'm someone who thinks soccer's boring and it's a waste of time for an hour and a half of people running around doing nothing, I've got to do the work and learn what are they actually doing? What are the strategies they're putting forth during the game? Why are they doing what they're doing? It's a ton of work to learn this so you can be a competent broadcaster, but that's what you have to do. And you've got to be willing to do it. If you're not prepared to do all of that work, then just turn down the opportunity of broadcasting that sport. There were other sports that I had a chance to broadcast that maybe here or there. And I said, you know what, I'm not just going to do one game here or there because of all the preparation and pre-work and learning it would take to do that. And as I said, when I broadcast for Army at West Point, I was doing basketball games already. That was second nature. I was working on the football broadcast, second nature. But when it came time to do play-by-play, because it wasn't going to be just one game, 2 games. It was going to be many games over seasons and a couple seasons. So it was worth my while to learn and prepare to do that. So that's why I start by saying soccer's boring. And then I get to the point where I say this. If you can dominate and be great at broadcasting soccer, you can do that. You can certainly do that if you do these things. If you do those things we just talked about. You learn, you prepare, you study, you entrench yourself, you become conversant. All of those things. And it's funny. I'm telling you, it's hilarious. Let's say you go into it saying soccer's boring. It's pointless for an hour and a half. There's no action. Guys just run around and do nothing. If you went through that year and you prepared, I guarantee you by the time you got to day one of broadcasting soccer, you would be into it. You'd be passionate. You'd be excited because now you knew the game. Now, instead of all the things I said at the beginning of this video, all the reasons why for me soccer is boring, all of a sudden I've solved for all those reasons. And now I'm passionate about it. I'm conversant in it. I'm excited about it because I know it. That's what happened to me in hockey. After that year, I was excited because I knew the players, I knew the strategies, I knew what was going on. And so when it came time to broadcast, I was enthused. I was pumped up about it. I remember when I was an intern at WFAN Radio, 1998. I was a student at Fordham, spent the spring as an intern at Sports Radio 66, WFAN. It was the Winter Olympics, that winter into the spring. And I remember standing there in the newsroom one night, and we're watching curling. And I thought to myself, this is just the worst. Curling? Why do I care about curling? And I'm staring at the screen. And next to me is Joe Tollison, who you might know from WFAN. And Joe starts explaining to me. He says, You ever watched curling before? No, first time. And I laughed. I'm a college kid. Why do I want to watch curling? And he starts explaining to me what they're doing. The guy with the brush, and then the other guy skating down with the weight. I don't know what it's called. I did know at one point. It's been a long time. I don't watch it all the time. But he starts explaining to me what it was and what they were doing. And here's why the guy is doing the brushing, and here's why the other one is guiding it the way he is. And over the course of, whether it was a week or two, I learned 100 times more than I had known before about curling, because I watched over and over, and he explained and he educated me on what it was. So now, every once in a while, if I see a Winter Olympics and I see curling, I'll stop for a minute because I understand it much better than I did. And that's what happens to you as a broadcaster as well, and as a sports fan. It happened to me as a fan there, but it's happened obviously as a sportscaster. So, yes, soccer is so boring. It's so boring. It's all you hear right now. Obviously, it's all you hear. People are talking about the lettuce and the diarrhea, the smoky air, the cheating in the elections, and the soccer tournament. That's what everybody's talking about right now. And that's why it was just important. It was an appropriate time to have this message, whether you're a sportscaster or a sports fan. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for joining us tonight. My name is Rick. Sportscastersclub.com is where you can find all of our books and 7-hour course. And on the YouTube channel, you've got years and years of videos, whether you're an aspiring sportscaster, an established sportscaster, or a sports fan. So thanks for joining us. It's been my pleasure. My name is Rick, and I'm going to go have a big, monstrous salad right now. Big one. Huge salad. I'm going to go have a big salad. Check in with me in a week. See how I'm doing. All right. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.